This happened a few weeks ago. I'm a long-haul trucker, and I've seen some strange things on the road, but nothing like what I experienced that night. I was driving through the Appalachian mountains, creeping along those haunting back roads. It was late. I remember glancing at my dashboard. 1:47 a.m. The clock stared back at me like a taunting ghost. Those diners I passed looked abandoned, the neon signs flickering like dying stars. I felt a weight in the air, a silence so thick it made my ears ring. I flipped between radio stations, but all I found was that eerie static. Then I heard it. A voice crackled through. "Drive safe, fellas. There's something out there." The voice was shaky and shaky enough to send chills down my spine. "Don't stop for anything. It's got a hunger." I thought it was a dumb joke at first. I chalked it up to tired truckers messing around. I laughed it off, but deep down I felt uneasy. A few nights later I felt that same cold breeze wrap around my shoulders. I was on that narrow stretch of road again, the trees clawing at the sky. I heard laughter, soft but close. Something wasn't right. I parked and peered through the windshield. The woods were dark and still. I convinced myself it was nothing. Reassured somehow, I pulled back onto the road, but the laughter followed me. It echoed through the trees as if mocking me. My heart raced as I drove. I thought I caught a glimpse of something in my headlights, a figure darting just beyond the reach of light. I shook my head, telling myself it was just my imagination. Then came the stories. I stopped at a diner a few days after, looking for a good cup of coffee. I heard a guy whispering to the waitress, his eyes darting to the windows. I leaned closer, trying to catch the conversation. "You better watch out, Mason. Out there, things aren't always what they seem." Fear shot through me. I could feel his fear in the air. Every truck I passed felt off. The drivers glanced at me, but their faces turned away too quickly. I didn't want to believe it, but paranoia ripped through my gut. That night, something changed. I was barreling down a dark road when I saw it. It was just standing there in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes. My heart pounded as I stared. Its eyes glinted back at me, reflecting my fear. I felt frozen, unable to move. It felt like a nightmare. I blinked, and in that heartbeat, it was gone. I didn't want to think about it. But then the stories kept surfacing. One night at a rest stop, I overheard another trucker talking to a friend. I swear I saw it, tall and thin with eyes that glowed. I couldn't breathe. It just stood there. I felt a spike in my chest. Was I the only one seeing this thing? My gut tightened. The laughter echoed in my mind as I pulled away. I needed to keep driving, keep moving. I never found out what was out there. I didn't want to find out. I just kept driving, just driving. The next evening came, heavy with unease. I was back on that same stretch of road, the trees looming over me. It felt like they were watching. I kept glancing at my rear-view mirror, expecting to see something lurking behind me. Nothing, just darkness. I pulled into a rest area, hoping to shake off the dread. The gravel crunched under my boots as I climbed out of the cab. Across the lot, I spotted a group of truckers gathered near an old, rusty rig. Their voices rose and fell, but the moment I approached, they fell silent, eyes flickering my way. I felt the heat of their stares, but I didn't back down. "Got a minute?" I asked. The tension in the air was thick. One of the truckers, a burly guy with a scruffy beard, nodded. "Been hearing tales," he said. His voice was low, almost conspiratorial. "You ever seen it?" I hesitated. The "it" he mentioned hung heavy between us. "What are you talking about?" "The thing in the woods. It's appeared to a few of us. Nights like this, it's worse." His eyes darted towards the tree line. I turned to look, but saw nothing but shadows. I swallowed hard. "What does it look like?" "It's tall," he said. "Skin like bark, eyes like fire. They say it's hungry. You have to keep driving. Don't ever stop." A chill danced down my spine. "And when you see it, just keep going. Whatever you do, don't get out." I thanked him and stumbled back to my truck, my mind racing. What were they hiding? Why were they all so scared? I climbed in and locked the door, the engine roaring to life, hoping to drown out the fear in my chest. I drove off slowly, scanning the tree line. My headlights pierced through the dark, revealing twisted branches and empty space. But as I drove farther, I spotted something ahead on the road. My heart raced. I slowed down, and there it was again. A figure, just standing off to the side. My hands gripped the wheel like a vice. This was it. This was what they warned about. I cranked the volume on the radio, drowning out the memories of laughter and whispers. It was right there, illuminated by my headlights. Tall, too thin, the skin seemed to gleam like wet bark. And those eyes, they glowed, almost beckoning me. I slammed on the brakes, heart pounding. It didn't move but watched me. In that moment, time stretched. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I blinked, and then it was gone, swallowed by shadows. The fear crashed back with full force. I felt the urge to flee, to put distance between me and that thing. I drove again, my foot heavy on the gas. Just as relief washed over me, I caught a glimpse in my rearview mirror. A shadow moved, darting across the road behind me. I hardly had time to register it before I heard a loud bang. The sound echoed in the stillness. I jerked the wheel, losing control for a moment, but steadied myself. What was happening? I didn't stick around to find out. I drove faster now, consumed with fear. The laughter from the woods pulsed in my head. That's when I saw it again. It was in the rear view, closer now. Panic surged through me. What did it want? I floored the accelerator, the truck roaring like a beast trying to escape. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the steering wheel. The trees on either side blurred into a dark smear. I took one more desperate look in the rear view. There it was, that figure, gliding through the night like it was part of the shadows. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was gaining on me. Suddenly I was struck by a stupid thought. What if this thing was somehow linked to the tales those truckers shared? Had it been waiting for me? I shivered at the idea. It felt personal now, like I was a character in some sort of twisted story. I tried to keep my mind sharp. The road twisted ahead, and I focused on the bends, hoping to lose it in the dark. The headlights kept cutting through the haze, revealing nothing but trees, occasional rocks, and more darkness. Still, I felt its presence, close and hungry. Then, as if taunting me, a low growl echoed from the woods. My heart raced. It sounded like a deep, rumbling laugh that reverberated through the air. My skin crawled. I was losing it. Fear was taking over. I caught sight of a fork in the road, the signs barely visible under the glow of my headlights. One way seemed to lead deeper into the woods, while the other continued along the highway. I realized this was a decision point, and I had to think fast. Behind me, the growl faded, replaced by an eerie silence that felt just as threatening. I could almost hear the thing breathing. I veered right, but as I did, a sharp pain shot through my chest. A surge of panic clawed at me, begging me to go back. I pressed the pedal down harder, swerving down the less-traveled road. That's when I saw it. A broken-down car, along with a figure standing beside it. My mind raced. Should I stop? Was this someone who needed help? Or another trap? I slowed, my heart hammering. The figure turned, and to my horror, I recognized the face. It was one of the truckers from the rest area, twisted in a way that made him look more monster than man. His eyes were wild, darting nervously, and I could see blood on his shirt. "Help!" he shouted, but the urgency in his voice was lost to the fear gripping me. I was frozen. The thing from the woods was now behind me again, and I could sense it closing in. In that moment, the trucker reached out as if to pull me from my cab. I slammed my foot on the gas and felt my truck lurch forward, the tires screeching against the gravel. I left him behind. His terrified face became a distant memory. I didn't look back. Instead, I forced myself to focus on the road, my pulse racing in anticipation of what was coming next. Then everything went dark. The headlights flickered and died, plunging me into night. My heart stopped. Panic seized me. I was blind in the dark, but I could still hear it, the soft rustle of leaves and the whisper of something coming closer. I fumbled for my phone, praying for a sliver of light, but there was no service out here. I was utterly alone. I pressed the accelerator again, hoping the truck would respond, but nothing happened. The engine sputtered, then fell silent. All I had was the sound of my own breathing and the rustling outside, that insistent whisper growing closer. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel, my heart thudding in my chest. I sat there in the dark, every nerve on alert. The shadows around me felt alive, watching, waiting. A chill washed over me, and I instinctively turned to look through the windshield. The moon broke free from a cloud, casting a pale light over the scene. I could barely make out the outline of my surroundings. The forest stood like silent sentinels, trees leaning together, their branches clawing at the sky. That's when I heard it, the crunch of leaves. My heart raced. It was close, too close. I rolled down the window, the cool air rushing in, bringing with it the scent of damp earth and something sharp. I strained to listen, hoping for the sound of another vehicle or a voice, anything other than the encroaching silence. Then all at once a figure burst from the tree line. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Dressed in ragged clothes, it was another person, a man. I squinted, trying to see him better. He was disheveled, hair wild and eyes gleaming with a frenetic energy. "Help! You need to get out of here," he shouted, panic etched across his face. "It's coming." "What? What's coming?" I yelled back, desperation creeping into my voice. "The thing in the woods. It takes them one by one. You can't stay here." His words tumbled out, frantic and urgent. Before I could respond, he lunged toward my truck. I thought he meant to pull me out, just like the trucker had done. I flinched, but then he stopped short, eyes widening as if he was seeing something behind me. I turned instinctively, cold dread pooling in my stomach. Out of the darkness, a shape emerged. It was massive, twisting between the trees like a shadow come to life. I couldn't see it clearly, but its presence was overwhelming, crawling under my skin. "Drive, now!" the man screamed, and his voice broke me from my stupor. I fumbled for the keys, pain burning in my chest as I fumbled to get the ignition going. It was a race against time. Finally, I turned the key, praying it would start. The truck roared to life, and I slammed the gas pedal down. The tires kicked up gravel as I sped away from the roadside, jerking hard to the left. The man stumbled back, falling but not looking back at all. He was too fixed on whatever was chasing me. As I zoomed past, I could see the creature looming closer, its uneven limbs stretching out in a grotesque imitation of a creature I could barely comprehend. I tore down the road, heart racing, feeling as if I was woven into a nightmarish tale. The trees whipped past me in a blur, but all I could think was that I had to keep going. I had no idea where I was going, just that I needed to get far away from that thing. But then I saw something ahead. A flickering light cutting through the darkness. Just as I thought I might have found a way out, I realized it was a cabin, a lone structure unguarded and seemingly untouched. Should I stop? As I approached, I could sense it again, that awful, cold presence creeping ever closer. I had to decide, stop and seek shelter or keep fleeing into the unknown. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I came closer to the cabin. Fear clawed at my throat, tight and constricting. I could only glimpse its rough-hewn walls, illuminated by the flickering light from an oil lamp in the window. The urge to stop surged within me, but my instincts screamed to keep moving. I glanced in the rearview mirror, my chest tightening when I spotted the creature still gaining on me. It was a twisted mass of darkness, undulating and pulsing, almost as if it was alive. My mind raced. There was nowhere else to go. I decided in that moment I would take the chance. I swung the truck into the gravel driveway, the tires screeching against the loose stones. The cabin loomed larger as I parked, heart hammering in my ears. I hesitated, the engine rumbling softly beneath me. I needed to act fast. Grabbing the flashlight from the glove box, I flung open the truck door and bolted toward the front porch. The wood creaked ominously under my weight as I bounded up the steps. I banged on the door, every thud echoing into the silence. "Hello?" I shouted, praying someone was inside. "Is anyone here?" No response came. The air felt heavy, thick with tension, as I took a step back, glancing over my shoulder at the forest behind me. My heart dropped when I realized the air was still, absent of its previous rustling. I turned and grabbed the doorknob, twisting with all my strength. To my surprise, it gave way, swinging open with a creak that sent chills down my spine. I stepped inside, the smell of wood and something acrid hitting me hard. The interior was dim, illuminated only by the flickering light. I swept the flashlight beam around the room. Empty furniture lurked in shadows, and cobwebs hung like curtains from the ceiling. It felt abandoned, but I had no time to dwell on that. I moved quickly to the back room, searching for any means of defense. The flickering light came from a lone oil lamp sitting atop a dusty table, surrounded by a few wilted, forgotten items. My eyes landed on a heavy iron poker. It would have to do. I grabbed it, feeling its weight reassuring in my hands. Just then I heard a sound behind me. A low, rumbling growl reverberated from outside. My stomach twisted, and I pressed my back against the wall, the poker raised in front of me like some meager shield. Fear surged through me as I waited. Breath shallow. Then everything went cold, and the air shifted. The creature had arrived. I felt it before I saw it, a pulse in the air like a storm brewing. I could hear branches snapping and leaves rustling, as if it was circling the cabin, searching for its prey. At that moment, a sharp knock echoed through the cabin door, and my heart seized in my chest. "Let me in, please, let me in." I hesitated. Could it be the man from the woods or something worse? The knocking grew frantic, desperate. That's when I realized whatever was outside was now inside. The door shuddered against the frame, the knocking growing more frantic. My mind raced, torn between the instinct to hide and the urge to help. What if it was a person? A chance for escape? But I couldn't shake the feeling that opening the door would be a mistake. "Who is it?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. My heart hammered in my chest, echoing in my ears. "It's me, let me in." The voice was familiar, but distorted, almost as if it were being pulled through a thick fog. I took a step back, the poker gripped tightly in my hands, my anxiety rising. What if I let him in? What if it really was a person, but one ensnared by the darkness? The growl from outside deepened, resonating through the walls like a warning. My breath came in short blasts as I backed away from the door. I needed to think, to decide. I glanced toward the window and froze. A shape loomed in the darkness outside, a twisting shadow creeping closer. Panic surged through me. "Stay back!" I shouted towards the window, but it didn't stop. The creature moved as though it thrived off my fear, feeding on the chaos in my heart. "Please just let me in. It's out here." The voice knocked against the door again, and a shiver ricocheted through me. I stood there, trapped between two terrifying choices. Open the door and confront whatever was outside, or keep it closed and face the creature alone. A sudden crash against the side of the cabin sent the poker clattering from my hands. I recoiled, fear threading into every fiber of my being. I dashed back toward the back room, feeling the walls close in around me. As I stumbled into the dim light, I locked my eyes on an old trunk tucked in the corner, half buried beneath cobwebs. Something glimmered beneath the dust, a key. Without thinking, I rushed over and yanked it free, my mind racing. My instincts told me to find a way out. Then I spotted the back door, It seemed ajar, rusted hinges creaking under the pressure of the wind. The creature outside was getting restless, its growls echoing through the confines of the cabin. I needed to get out before it found me. I turned the key in my trembling fingers, my heart pounding as I felt the cold metal against my skin. But just as I positioned the key into the lock, the front door burst open with a violent bang. The man from the woods stumbled in, panic etched on his face. "Get away from the door," he shouted, eyes wild. But before he could step fully into the cabin, I caught sight of it, a creeping shadow behind him, crawling across the dirt like a midnight fog. There was no time to act. I stepped back, my body frozen in place. I knew then what was out there wasn't just a creature. It was a predator, and we were the prey. My next move could decide our fate, and I wasn't sure I was ready for the answer. The man lurched into the cabin, stumbling like a wounded animal. I didn't hesitate. I turned to the back door, desperate to slip away before it followed him inside. "Close it!" I cried. But he didn't move. He was transfixed by what loomed behind him. A low rumble emanated from the shadow, a living mass that swirled and surged as though eager to enter. It was alive, pulsating with a dark energy that made my skin crawl. I shivered, debating whether to grab the poker off the floor or make a run for it. The shadows danced in my peripheral vision, tantalizing and terrifying. "Close the door," I yelled again, and finally the man reacted, slamming the front door shut. I could still feel the weight of its presence, lurking just beyond the threshold. He backed away, heart racing. "Did you see it?" he asked, breathless. My throat was dry. "What is it?" The words tasted foreign on my tongue. "I don't know. It just followed me." His eyes darted toward the windows, fear evident in every line of his face. "Then we have to leave. Now." But the moment I turned toward the back door, the shadows coiled tighter, kindling a fear that wrapped around my heart. Looking over my shoulder, I caught sight of the front door. Moments ago, it felt like my only exit. Now it seemed like a trap. "We can't go out there," I said, feeling my resolve weaken. "What if it's waiting for us?" He nodded, his expression bleak. "We might have to fight it, but we need to act fast." I noticed the flicker of a lantern behind him. It was barely lit, but offered some reassurance. I mashed the key into my pocket, unwilling to abandon the notion of escape, even though I could hardly trust if it led anywhere safe. "Do you have any weapons?" I asked, scanning the room. He shook his head. "Just a few supplies." I rummaged through the old trunk, pulling out old metal tools, a rusty crowbar, and a few old kitchen knives that I hoped were sharp enough. I passed one to him. "Here, take this." He gripped it tightly, though I could see the hesitation in his grip. The growling intensified, reverberating against the cabin walls like thunder. My heart raced as the air thickened with dread. "What do we do? Should we try to barricade the doors?" He chewed on his lip, eyes darting to the front door, then back to me. "It might be able to break them down, but we can try. Maybe it can't get in if we hold it off." I felt a glimmer of hope, but it was quickly snuffed out. Did we really think we could fight this thing? Then, breaking through my racing thoughts, I heard something that made my stomach drop. A scraping sound. It was coming from the back door, the sound of claws against wood. "No!" The word escaped my lips on a gasp. My thoughts raced. The creature was here. "Quick, move the furniture!" he shouted, and we both rushed toward the heavy table, pushing it against the back door. That's when I saw it. A dark shape through the cracks around the door, eyes glinting like shards of glass. It paused for a moment as if assessing us. We were running out of time, and whatever lay beyond that door was growing restless. The table scraped against the floor, and I felt my pulse quicken with every echo of the claws outside. The dark shape lingered near the back door, its eyes never leaving us. I fumbled with the rest of the furniture, dragging a couple of chairs to reinforce our barrier. If it got in, there wouldn't be much time to react. "Do you think it knows we're here?" I whispered, my voice shaky. He flushed pale. "It probably does. It's not just an animal, something about it. It's sentient. I felt its awareness when I was running." I glanced at him, suddenly realizing we were far from safe. "We could still escape through the front," I suggested, the words tasting bitter. But the fear was palpable. He shook his head firmly. "It'll be waiting there too. We're better off here. If we can hold it off, we can think of a plan." I ignored the shivers crawling down my spine. The growling resumed, deeper and more furious now. I could almost picture its claws scraping against the wood, eager for entry. I turned back to the windows. The dark mass outside moved like smoke, twisting and swirling, as though it flowed from one shadow to another, unsure of where to strike. During a second, I thought I caught a glimpse of a figure amongst it, but the vision was gone as fast as it came. "Do you see something?" he asked, noticing my sudden stillness. "No, maybe." I shook it off. "We need light." I reached for the flickering lantern he'd mentioned. I could barely make out how to fill it, but desperation drove me. I pulled out the small, half-empty bottle of oil I found in the trunk. My hands were clammy as I poured, the oily liquid splashing more onto my fingers than into the lamp. With a deep breath, I ignited the wick. It flared brighter than the failing sunlight peeking through the cracks in the cabin. Shadows retreated momentarily, flickering against the walls. "Don't let it out of your sight," he said, clutching the knife. The growling shifted, becoming more aggressive. It sounded like a warning, a challenge. Whatever was on the other side was furious, and it wanted in. I was terrified of what would happen if it broke through, but I felt a flicker of determination fighting against my fear. Suddenly the front door rattled violently. My heart dropped as wood splintered from the impact. "They're coming for us," I exclaimed, adrenaline coursing through my veins. He glanced at me, his eyes wide with panic at the noise. "We need to hold this door. They can't come in." My knuckles turned white against the lantern as I placed it on the table for light. The shadows twisted and writhed around us, emboldened by the sudden danger. Then through the frenzied sounds I heard something, a voice rising above the growl. It was a low whisper, too steady to be lost in the chaos. "Help!" it pleaded, like a whisper carried on the wind. I squinted into the gloom, the noise of the front door, and the scratching at the back melding into one terrifying cacophony. What was that?" He froze, his breath hitching in his throat. "Did you hear it too?" Before I could answer, the back door splintered, the wood cracked under the weight of whatever darkness awaited us. I felt the air thicken again, almost suffocating. "Hold it!" I shouted as the door broke open, and a rush of icy air swept into the cabin, mixing with the darkness, and then everything went black. I gasped, the cold air biting against my skin as I stumbled backward. The lantern flickered but held steady, casting an eerie glow that only added to the chaos. My heart thundered in my chest as I felt the weight of something approaching in the darkness. Then a low growl swelled into the cabin. It wasn't just outside anymore, it was inside, swirling around us like a living thing. I couldn't see a shape in the dark, but I felt it. My breath came out in short bursts, panic clawing at my throat. "Stay close," he shouted, his voice rising above the growl. But I couldn't move. Fear had me rooted to the spot. And then I felt it, a pair of cold eyes watching me from the shadows, unfathomable and hungry. Just as I was about to turn and bolt for the door, the growl broke into a full-throated roar. It reverberated through the cabin, and I stumbled, the lantern nearly falling. Through the darkness I caught a glimpse of something, a sharp, glistening tooth and a pair of massive, powerful legs, just before it vanished back into the shadows. "Did you see that?" I gasped, finally managing to break the paralysis. He nodded, breathless. "We need a plan, and fast." The growl shifted. I recognized the voice again, pleading from somewhere deep in the dark. "Help. Where is it coming from?" he asked, looking around. I don't know," I stammered, my pulse racing. The growling grew louder, closer, mixing with the whisper that echoed in my mind. The lantern flickered again, and suddenly I noticed the window, cracked and dirty, reminiscent of a forgotten memory. There was something there, I realized, a shadow shifting against the glass, darker than the rest of the night. "They're not just outside," I breathed. "I think they're inside, too." "Inside?" His voice trembled, and I saw the fear in his eyes deepen. "How?" Before I could respond, the table we had pushed against the back door creaked. I watched in horror as it started to move, drawn away from the door, as if by an unseen force. "Stop!" I screamed, lunging to push it back. But it was too late. The door burst open in a shower of wood splinters, and several dark figures rushed into the cabin. My world tilted, reality blurring amid shadows and snarls. Without thinking, I grabbed the lantern, swinging it towards the doorway. The light collided with something solid, and I felt a surge of hope as it hit. "Fall back!" he yelled, shoving me towards the other side of the room, but there was nowhere to go. I turned, adrenaline fueling my steps, only to realize I was trapped between the figures streaming in and the darkness that still churned outside. And then I saw it, a flash of white amid chaos. Someone, or something, was indeed in distress, caught in the middle of everything. I realized it wasn't just a voice anymore, it was a shape, and it was closer than I wanted to believe. "Help," it called again. Clearer now. That's when I understood. I had to make a choice. "Help," I cried back, fear rolling off my tongue in desperate waves as the shadows closed in. But what would help us? The growling grew louder, drowning out my cry. The darkness pressed against me, and just as I thought I could see the figure, the lantern flickered out. Then everything went dark again. I jolted awake, gasping as my eyes flew open to blinding sunlight filtering through dust-laden windows. I blinked, disoriented, my heart pounding as fragments of the night swirled in my mind. Shadows, growls, that ghostly whisper pleading for help. But the cabin was empty now, eerily quiet. I pushed off the floor, slumping against the wall for support. The lantern lay extinguished, its warmth replaced by an unsettling chill that crept into my bones. The door hung precariously in its frame, but the backs of my legs pressed against a wooden table I vaguely remembered pushing against the other door. Had we barricaded ourselves after all? "Hello?" I croaked, but my voice cracked and echoed softly back to me. The dilapidated cabin felt lifeless, lacking that pulsing atmosphere of fear from before. Had it all been a dream? I took cautious steps toward the front door, gently pulling it open. Sunlight poured in, illuminating the yard, the trees swaying lazily in the gentle breeze, as if mocking the chaos that had unfolded just hours before. I cautiously stepped outside, feeling the cool air wrap around me like an embrace, but my pulse quickened as realization washed over me. Where was he? The trucker who had stumbled in with me, pleading for survival. I turned, half expecting him to be lingering in the shadows, but I was alone. The woods looked much calmer under the sunlight. The terrifying growls and flickering shadows had vanished, leaving nothing behind but a lingering sense of dread. Yet I felt oddly tethered to the memory of that dark mass, as if it lingered just beyond the trees, awaiting my return. I peered into the forest's depths, searching for answers, but found nothing. Then a car horn blared somewhere in the distance, breaking my reverie. Hope surged in my chest. Perhaps it signaled the arrival of help or a return to the normalcy outside this nightmare. I sprinted toward my truck, every footfall pounding a rhythm of urgency in my head. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the door, my heartbeat quickening with each turn of the key. It clicked, but the engine sputtered and died. Frustration surged through me. I glanced back at the cabin, its peeling paint and warped windows still standing, a silent witness to whatever dark encounter had taken place. Should I head back inside? Could I find clues as to whatever had happened? But the thought of stepping back into that darkness sent shivers down my spine. "Just drive," I whispered to myself, forcing my mind to push through the fear. I jumped out, ready to start walking if needed, when out of the corner of my eye, movement in the tree line caught my attention. I squinted, my heart racing with uncertainty. Something crept just beyond the edge of the sunlight, and instinct took over. I turned and sprinted, not looking back. I didn't need to know if it was following me. I pushed toward where the horn had echoed, desperate to escape the lingering nightmares of the night. Just as I reached the road, I spotted a truck hurtling towards me, a sharp silhouette that suddenly consumed the horizon. Hope rushed over me. The truck slowed, a familiar face behind the wheel. Mason! It was one of the truckers I'd seen at the diner, a change in the air filled with relief. I scrambled to the side of the road, waving my arms, gratitude bursting within me. "Get in!" he shouted, and without another thought I leaped into the passenger seat. "Did you see it?" I gasped, finally allowing myself to breathe again, the near misses and horror spilling from my lips. His eyes shifted nervously, scanning the woods. I didn't see anything, but around here, who knows what's lurking? The truck roared back to life as he pulled away, the distance growing between us and that accursed cabin. Relief washed over me, but the creeping sense of dread tugged at my mind. What had happened to the trucker who fled with me? Had the shadows truly receded? Were they just waiting for someone else? The rest of the drive blurred together as I clung to the edge of reality, those dark memories whispering in the corner of my mind. I found myself peering out the window, watching the endless stretch of highway unfold before us. I tried to shake the unease, smiling when the trucker made idle conversation. But every chuckle and flicker of happiness was murky, tinged with the fear that would haunt my thoughts. When we finally crossed the state line and back into familiar terrain, the weight on my chest lightened. But even as I settled into a false sense of safety, something deep inside me knew the truth. I wasn't free. I would never truly escape what had stalked me that night in the woods, and I still couldn't tell whether it was darkness incarnate or a mere trick of my fading sanity. Either way, I suspected the truth would haunt my miles ahead someday. I moved out of the neighborhood I used to traverse week after week, but still, I think of that place sometimes. The faces, the laughter that echoed, the thing that awaited in the trees. Would it hunt again? And if so, who would it choose next?